People pretending that our love is still not so wide. And at least for a while, everything is fine. People pretending that our love is still not so wide. And at least for a while, everything is fine. People pretending.
Earlier this year, Cities Aviv released his greatest work to date and my current album of the year, Man Plays the Horn. This album is a beautiful behemoth, an hour and a half of mastery, using hip-hop to explore the history and importance of music. Aviv produces this entire thing, and he expertly weaves in samples that highlight the history of black music, which essentially is the history of music itself. And that fact isn't lost on the artist. He takes pride in the history of his culture and in being an artist. This album is dedicated to music of all kinds, especially the people who love and create music. It is dedicated to the proverbial man playing the horn. Before he was a rapper, Cities Aviv was a member of the hardcore punk band named Copwatch, so he's well equipped to tackle a variety of sounds from different genres and put them into a blender to all match this dreamlike vibe that he's created. The album starts with the first of many soul samples, on Everything Working on a Natural Time. The first vocals that we hear on the record aren't even Aviv's. It's a sample from an interview from, I believe, an old jazz artist. And he explains the reasons why the youth of today gravitate towards hip-hop instead of jazz. This whole interview clip acts as a thesis statement for the project. It states,
"It used to be when I was a kid that everybody in the neighborhood was somehow into this music. They all knew who Miles was. They all knew something about Charlie Parker and J.J. Johnson. But today we're into another era. Young people are rapping, hip-hop. I've got nothing against that. It's just that I think that there's a reason for that. Partly, it's economic. When I was a kid, you could buy a saxophone for $500. And today, it costs a person $5,000 to buy a saxophone. So quite naturally, young kids, the young Coltrane's today are rapping instead of blowing their horns or playing pianos.
This passage bridges the gap between hip-hop and jazz, and really all music together, explaining that it all comes from the same place, a desire to create. No matter what resources you have, music will always be made in one way or another. Not only does this album explore the roots of black music, but it also explores the roots of Aviv himself. The second track, Black Pleasure, is a clear callback to his first ever album from 2012 of the same name. In the line between verse 1 and 2 he says, "When you say my name, recognize I'm a fixture, never to be cropped out of the image of the picture." This is simultaneously a statement of Aviv stamping his place on hip-hop and music culture, while also doubling as a point of view of black people throughout history. So much of history, and more specifically music history, has been whitewashed and rewritten to belittle the contributions of black people. So here Aviv is declaring that music and black people cannot be separated. On the intro to the song he says, "You are now in tune to the last man at the ceremony, man plays the horn." And on the very next track, called The Sun, the Moon, and the Spa, he says, "You are now in tune with the man, last man in the room, man plays the horn." This is a sentiment that he echoes at a few points here, and it feels like Aviv is coming to terms with the harsh truth that he may be the last of a dying breed, a true musician that may not have the same reverence for the art that he does. On the song Blues Traveler, he laments the past, repeating,
"Don't you run, bad, 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 bad. I was in my prime, I was on my thing. I just wanna sing. I was in my prime, I was in my time." Okay.
Drawing sonic inspirations in the form of sampling, but also with Aviv's lyrics, he seems to just have a real truthful fondness for music of the past and his musical roots. He hails from a musical background, with many singers in his family, including his mom, who was a singer and poet. I think any music lover would love this project, even if you're not usually interested in this type of sound, because you can feel the love and appreciation for the music that we all love here. On The Sun, the Moon, and the Spa, he samples a recent interview with Yasin Bey, aka Mos Def, where he says,
"And to quote Kurt Cobain, it's only a few people that really love music and they all musicians."
I had listened to this interview before, but hearing it in the context of this album, it really spoke to me. So much in fact that the day after I first heard this album, I started making beats. That's how much my love for music and my love for this album infected me. There are 26 songs in this album, and I really love all of them in their own way. I love the stormy instrumental of Mace Man, and the happy vibes of Self-Improvement of Cinema Club. The album has interludes and instrumental tracks scattered throughout, even with a 12-minute instrumental song on Smoking on a Brighter Day, a track which is unapologetic in its inclusion. Not even halfway through the album, and it takes a break for 12.5 minutes of ambient hip-hop. It forces you to stop and take in the music. This album goes at its own pace, and it makes getting from start to finish all the more rewarding. His rapping is avant-garde, matching his free-flowing production. Aviv has this poetic wordplay that, combined with his understated delivery, makes his vocals the perfect match for this dreamlike production. He uses his voice almost as an instrument, blending with the instrumentation, letting the listener choose to either pay attention to the lyrics, or if they'd like, they can still feel the intended experience simply by listening to the emotion in his delivery. His rapping and production feels lost in the freedom of expression, unbound by any conventional song-making techniques. Take a listen to Aviv talk about his song-creating process on this album.
You know, when you hear those beats, like I'm live recording myself, like making those beats. And nothing is like, you know, sequence in a traditional sense of, oh, here's a loop and then I just place it, you know, 30 times and then you get the beat. Like all those tracks you hear in any like flutters, filters, whatever the fuck, it's all like live recorded. And even to another extent, like some of the vocals, you know, are like freestyled.
Yeah.
Just hit and record and just hopping on and spitting. Which to me is the essence of hip hop music. If we want to talk about it, it's like cats hanging out in the park and somebody spinning break beats and chopping loops, and then MCs on the microphone. You know, we could draw a comparison to like punk rock music or something like that, but you know, a while back I was speaking on how when I'm chopping the beats, that's my riff, and then I'm the man on the microphone controlling. So, you know, as far as the sound on those records, it's like I wanted to bring that original hip hop feel and push it to the max.
This project has a live feel to it, not only in its real-time creation process, but it feels like a living being, growing and evolving over the course of every track. All of these tracks blend different sounds and inspirations, but a lot of them have beat changes halfway through, basically having the songs blossom into something completely new by the end of it. His style is very impressionistic. At first glance it may seem without form or structure, but the more you take in the art, the more you see the mastery involved. And the album is not just filled with pretty sounds and melodies. His lyricism is at the peak of his career here. The song Tragedy Theater is one of my favorite verses of the year. It starts with a string of perfectly placed words, saying,
The tragedy of trudging through the treacherous crime. True power still reigns forever in a day. My shine cut the shade like a hacksaw blade from Spain. All peace to my midday crooners.
Just like many of the songs on this album are split into two distinct acts, I think the album as a whole goes through a similar evolution. The first act of the album, from Everything Working on a Natural Time until The Way the World Works, seemed to get into some more harrowing themes. From some of the more socially conscious songs that I mentioned earlier, to Ways of the World, which has the sampled hook of an R&B singer pleading, "Don't give in to the ways of the world." On the intro to his verse, Aviv raps, "This world tragic, black magic, don't give in to the static and the lies, don't give in to the pressures on your mind." Here Aviv is really contemplating the ills of the world, a very negative but pragmatic outlook. This song is also, I believe, the last time on the album that he says, "You are now in tune to the last man in the room." At this point in the project is where Aviv lets go of the notion that he's alone in the world. After this track, he no longer sees himself as the last in a long line of musicians. Here is where the album goes from looking back to optimistically looking forward. The very next song is Cinema Club, which has a completely different feel to it, with him just having fun, riffing about shooting a TikTok movie over a bonkers beat of a glitching soul sample. The hook of the song is the complete opposite to the outlook of Ways of the World. He raps,
I just wanna be greater in all my ways. Isolated from all my pain. So glad you made it, it's okay.
From here on out, the album straight up becomes a happy, comforting joyride. The very next track is that 12-minute relaxing instrumental that I mentioned before. This song just feels like sitting on a beach, listening to the waves crash onto the shore. The song Romance sounds like it's going in slow motion. Like that scene in the movies where you see your true love for the first time, and everything stops and goes in slow motion. Now that he's closed the idea that he's the last of a dying breed, he raps about his thoughts on passing along his music to his future kids and the next generation on the song catalog. The third act of the album gets a little more experimental with the production, leading up to the final song, which might be my favorite track on the whole project. The final spark is nothing like anything I've ever heard, with this hypnotizing sample that speeds up slowly as Aviv recites what sounds like grumblings of a man trying to grunt out his final words while on his deathbed. 2/3 into the song, the beat speeds up, resembling a life flashing before one's eyes. And then the beat breaks down to a light but clear sample of singing, and then devolving into nothing but loosely assorted sounds. This is the perfect way to end an album that is just as much a life experience as it is a piece of art. Thank you for watching, everybody. I had a really good time making this video. I really love this album. This is easily my favorite project of the year so far. It actually really reminds me of my album of the year from 2020, which was Miles by Blue in Exile. Both projects are around an hour and a half and explore the history of the artist, as well as music itself, through the sampling and the lyricism. Anyway, let me know what do you think about this album. Let me know down in the comments what is your favorite song on the project. I'd like to give a special shout out to the Rap Music Plug podcast, which had some great coverage on this album, so definitely go check that pod out. If you enjoyed this video and want to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, that is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.